Hi friends, continuing to the chapter Many Lives, Many Masters. We are giving the intuitive powers we should follow and not try to resist. Those who resist will meet with danger. We are not seen back from each planes with an equal power. Some of us possess powers greater than the others because they have been acquired from the other times. Thus, people are not all created equal, but eventually we will reach a point where we will all be equal. Catherine paused. I knew these thoughts were not hers. She had no background in the physics or the metaphysics. She knew nothing about the planes and the dimension and the vibrations. But beyond that, the beauty of the word and the thoughts, the psychological implications of these uttering, these were all beyond Catherine's capabilities. She had never talked in such a coincidence, poetic manner. I could feel another higher forces struggling with her mind and vocal cord to translate these thoughts into words so that I could understand. No, this was not Catherine. Her voice had a dreamy one. People who are in comas or in a state of suspensions, they are not ready yet to cross into the other plane until they have decided whether they want to cross or not. Only they can decide this. If they feel they have no more learnings in the physics state, then they are allowed to cross over. But if they have more learnings, then they must come back. Even if they do not want to, that is a rest period for them, a time when their mental powers can rest. So people in the comas can decide whether or not to return depending upon how much learning they have yet to accomplish in the physical state. If they feel there is nothing further to learn, they can go directly to the spiritual state. Modern medicine notwithstanding, this information meshed nicely with the research being published about the near death experiences and why some people chose to return. Others were not given the choice. They had to return because there were more to learn. Of course, all of the people interviewed about their never death experiences returned to their bodies. There is a striking similarity in their story. They became detached from their bodies and watched recognition effort from a point about their bodies. They eventually became aware of the bright light or a glowing spiritual figure in the distance, sometime at the end of the tunnel. They feel no pain as they became aware that their tasks on the earth are not yet completed and they must return to their bodies. They are immediately rejoined to their bodies and once again are aware of a pain and other physical sensations. I have had several patients with near death experiences. The most interesting account was that of an successful South American businessman who was seen by me for several sessions of the conventional psychotherapy about the 2 years after Catherine treatments ended. Jacob had been run over and knocked unconscious by a motorcycle in Holland in 1975. When he was in his early 30s, he remembered floating above his body and looking down at the scene of the accident. Taking note of an ambulance, the door, the doctor attending his injuries, and the growing crowd of the onlookers. He became aware of an golden light in the distance, and as he approached it, he saw a monk wearing a brown robe. The monk told Jacob that this was not his time to pass over, that he had to return to his body. Jacob felt the wisdom and power of the monk, who also related several further events in Jacob's life, all of which later occurred. Jacob was forced back into his body, now in a hospital bed, regained the consciousness, and for the first time became aware of exerting pain. In 1980, while traveling in Israel, Jacob, who is a Jewish, visited the cave of an partitions in Hebrew, which is a holy site to both the Jews and Muslims. After his experience in the Holy Land, he had become more religious and had begun to pray more often. He saw the nearby mosque and sat down to pray with the Muslims there. After a while, he rose to leave. An old Muslim man came up to him and said, "You are different from others. They were rarely sit down to pray with us." The old man paused for a moment, looking closely at the Jacobs before continuing. "You have met the monk. Do not forget what he has told you." 5 years after the accident and thousands of a miles distance, an old man knew about Jacob's rencounter with the monk, an encounter that happened while Jacob had been unconscious. In the office, pondering Catherine's latest revelation, I wondered what our foundation fathers would have thought about the proportions that all human are not created equal. People are born with talents, abilities, and the power acquired from the other lifetimes. But eventually, we will reach a point where we will all be equal. I suspected that this point was many lifetimes distant. I thought about the young Mozart and his incredible childhood talents. Was this also a carryover of former abilities? Apparently, we carried over abilities as well as debates. I thought about how people tended to congregate in homogeneous group, avoiding and often fearing outside. This was the root of prejudice and a group hatred. We also must learn not to just go to those people whose vibration are the same as ours. To help those other people, I could feel the spiritual truth in her words. "I must come back," Catherine resumed. "I must come back," but I wanted to hear more. I asked her who Robert Jacob was. She had mentioned his name during the last session, stating that he needed my help. "I don't know. He may be in the other plane, not this one." Apparently, she could not find him. "Only when he wants, only if he decided to come to me," she whispered. "He will send me a message. He needed your help." I still could not understand how I could help. "I don't know," Catherine answered. "But you are the one to be taught, not I." This was interesting. Was this material for me, or was I to help Robert Jarrod by being taught? We never did hear from him. "I must go back," she repeated. "I must go to the light first." Suddenly she was alarmed. "Oh, I have hesitated much too long. Because I hesitated, I have to wait again. While she waited, I asked her what she was seeing and feeling. Just other spirit, other souls, they were waiting too. I asked her whether there was something to teach us while she was waiting. Can you tell us what we must know? I asked. They are not here to tell me, she replied. Fascinating. If the masters were not there for her to hear, Catherine could not independently provide the knowledge. I am very restless being here. I do want to go. When the time is right, I will go. Again, minutes silently passed. Finally, the time must have been right. She had fallen into the another lifetime. I see apple trees and a house, a white house. I have lived in the house. The apples are rotten. Worms, no good to eat. There is a swing on the tree. I asked her to look at herself. I have a light hair, blonde hair. I am 5 years old. My name is Catherine. I was surprised. She had entered her present life. She was Catherine at the age 5. But she must be there for some reasons. Did something happen there, Catherine? My father is angry at us because we are not supposed to be outside. He, he is hitting me with a stick. It is very heavy. It hurts. I am afraid. She was winning, speaking like a child. He won't stop till he hurts us. Why does he do this to you? Why did he so me? I asked her to see her life from a higher perspective and to answer her own questions. I had recently read about the people being able to do this. Some writers call this perspective one's higher self or greater self. I was curious whether Catherine could reach this state if it is excited. If she could, this would be a powerful therapeutic technique, a shortcut to insight and understanding. He never wanted us, she whispered very softly. He feels we are an illusions in his life. He doesn't want us. Your brother too. I asked. Yes, my brother, even more. They never planned for my brother. They weren't married then. He was convinced. This proved to be startled new information for Catherine. She had never known about the preliminary pregnancy. Her mother later confirmed the accuracy of the Catherine revelation. Although she was recounting a lifetime, Catherine now exhibited a wisdom and perspective about her life, and that had previously been restricted to the in between or spiritual state. Somehow there was a higher part of her mind, a sort of an superconscious. Perhaps this was the higher self than the others have described. Although not in the contact with the masters and the spectacular knowledge, nevertheless in her superconscious state, she supposed profound insights and informations, such as her brother's conception. The conscious Catherine, when awake, was much more anxious and limited, much simpler and comparatively superficial. She could not tap into his superconscious state. I wondered if the prophets and the sages of Eastern and the Western religions, those called as occultized, were able to utilize their superstitious conscious state to obtain their wisdom and the knowledge. If so, then we all had the ability to do so. for we must all possess this superconsciousness. The psychoanalyst Carl Jung was aware of the different levels of an consciousness. He wrote about the collective unconscious, a state with a similarity to the Catherine's superconscious. I would become increasingly frustrated by the uncrossable gulf between Catherine consciousness, awake intellect, and her travels translevel superconscious mind. While she was hypnotist, I would have fascinating the psychological dialogues with her at the superconscious level. When awake, however, Catherine had no interest in psychology or related matters. She lived in the world of everyday detail, oblivious of the genius within her. Meanwhile, her father was tormenting her, and the reason was becoming evident. He has many lessons to learn, I stated in a questioned way. Yes, so he does. I asked her if she knew what he had to learn. This knowledge is not revealed to me. Her tone was detached, distant. What is revealed to me is what is important to me, what concerns me. Each person must be concentrated within him or herself, with making him or herself whole. We have lessons to learn, each one of us. They must be learning one at a time, in order. Only then can we know that what the next person needs, what he or she lacks, or what we lack to make us whole. She spoke in a soft whisper and whispered, convinced a feeling of an lovely detachment. When Catherine spoke again, the childlike voice had returned. He is making me sick. He is making me eat this stuff that I don't want. It's some food, lettuce, onion stuff I hate. He is making me eat it, and he knows I'm going to be sick. But he doesn't care. Catherine began to gag. She was gasping for the air. I again suggested that she view the scene from a higher perspective, that she needed to understand why her father acted this way. Catherine spoke in a raspy whisper. It must fill some void in him. He hates me because of what he did. He hates me for that, and he hate himself. I had nearly forgotten about the sexual assaults when she was 3 years old. So he must punish me. I must have done something to make him to do that. She was only 3 years old, and her father was drunk. Yet she had carried this guilt deep within her ever since. I explained the obvious. You were just a baby. You must now reveal yourself this guilt. You didn't do anything. What could a 3-year-old do? It wasn't you. It was your father. He must have hated me then, too, she gently whispered. I know him before. I cannot draw on that information now. I must go back to that time. Although several hours had already passed, I wanted to go back to the previous relationship. I gave her detailed instruction. You are in a deep state. In a moment, I am going to count backward from 3 to 1. You will be in the deeper state and will feel totally safe. Your mind will be free to roam back into the time again. Back to the time when the connections to your father in your current life began. Back to the time that had the most significant bearing on what happened in your childhood between you and him. When I say one, you will go back to that lifetime and remember it. It is important for you cure. You can do that. 3, 2, 1. There was a long pause. I don't see him, but I see people killed. Her voice became loud and husky. We have no rights to abruptly halt people's lives before they have lived out of their karma. And we are doing it. We have no rights. They will suffer greater reputations if we let them live. When they die and go to the next dimension, they will suffer there. They will be left in a very restless state. They will have no space, no peace, and they will have to make up those people that they hurt for the injustice that they did against them. They are halting these people's lives, and they have no rights to do that. Only God can punish them, not us. They will be punished. A minute of a silence passed. They are gone, she whispered. The master spirits had given us one more messages today, strong and clever. We are not to kill, no matter what the circumstances. Only God can punish. Catherine was exalted. I decided to postpone our purest of a past life connection to her father, and I thought brought her out of her trance. She remembered nothing except her incarnation as Christian, as a young Catherine. She was tired, yet peaceful and relaxed, as if a huge weight has been lifted from her. My eyes met Carol. We were also exhausted. We had shivered and we had sweated, hanging on to every word. We had shared an incredible experiences. I now scheduled Catherine weekly session at the end of the day because they were lasting several hours. She still had that peaceful look about her when she came into the following week. She had talked with her father on the phone. Without giving him any details, she said, had in her way, forgive him. I had never seen her in this serene. I marveled at the rapidity of her progress. It was rare for a patient with such chronic, deep-seated anxieties and fear to improve so dramatically. But then, of course, Catherine was hardly an ordinary patient, and the course her therapy had taken was certainly unique. I see a reclined doll sitting on a some type of mantle. She had quickly fallen into a deep trance. There are books next to the fireplace on both sides. It is a room with some houses. There are a candlesticks next to the doll and a painting of a face, the man's face. It is him. She was scanning the room. I asked her what she was seeing. Some type of coverings on the floor. It is fuzzy like that. It is animal skin. Yes, some type of animal skin covering on the floor. To the right, there are two glass doors that leads one on to the veranda. There are 4 steps. Column on the front of the house. 4 steps down. They lead out a path. Big trees all are around. There are some horses outside. The horses are bridled to some posts that are sitting out front. Did you know where this is? I inquired. Catherine took a deep breath. I don't see a name, she whispered. But the year must be somewhere. It is 18th century. But I don't know. There are trees and yellow flowers, very pretty yellow flowers. She was distracted by these flowers. They smell wonderful. They smell sweet, the flowers. Strange flowers, big flowers. Yellow flowers with a black center in them. She paused, reminding about among the flowers. I was remembered of a field of sunflowers in the south of France. I asked her about the climate. It was very temperature, but it is not breezy. It is neither hot nor cold. We are not making any progress in identifying the local. I took her back into the house away from the fantasizing yellow flowers, and I asked her whose portrait was about the mantle. I can't. I keep hearing Aaron. His name is Aaron. I asked it. He owned the house. No, his son does. I work there. Once again, she was cast as a servant. She had never even remotely approached the statues of an Cleopatra or a Napoleon. Doubters of an reincarnation, including my own scientifically trained self, until the past 2 months, often points to the much higher than expected frequency of an incarnation as famous people. Now I found myself in the most unusual positions of having reincarnation being proved scientifically right in my office in the Department of Psychiatry. And much more, the reincarnation was being revealed. My leg is very, Catherine continued, very heavy. It hurts. It almost feels like it is not there. My leg is hurt. The horse kicked me. I told her to look at herself. I have brown hair, brown curly hair. I have some type of bonnet on, some type of white bonnets, a blue dress with some type of pinafore on the dress, apron. I'm young, but not a child. But my leg hurts. It has just happened. It hurts terribly. She was visibly in great pain. Shoo, shoo. She kicked me with his shoe. He is a very, very mean horse. Her voice grew softer as the pain finally subsided. I can smell the voice grow softer. Hey, the feet in the barn. There are the other people working in the stable area. I asked about her duties. I was responsible for serving in the back house. I also had something to do with the milking the cows. I wanted to know more about the owners. The wife is rather plump, very woody looking, and there are two daughters. I do not know them, she added, anticipating my next question whether any had appeared yet in the Catherine's current lifetime. I inquired about her own families in 18th century. I don't know. I don't see them. I don't see anybody with me. I asked if she lived there. I lived here, yes, but not in the main house. Very small. The house is provided for us. They are chickens. We gather up the eggs. They are brown eggs. My house is very small and white. One room. I see a man. I lived with him. He had a very curly hair and a blue eye. I asked if they are married. Not their understanding of marriage, no. Was she born there? No, I was brought to the estate when I was very young. My family was very poor. Her maid did not seem familiar. I directed her to move ahead in the time to the next significant event in their lifetime. I see something white, white with many ribbons on it. Must be a hat, some types of a bonnet with the feathers and the white ribbons. Who is wearing that hat? Is it? She cuts me off. The lady of the house, of course. I feel a bit stupid. It is the marriage of one of her daughters. The whole estate joined in the celebration. I asked if there was anything in the newspaper about the wedding. If there was, I would have had look at the date. No, I don't believe they have newspaper there. I see nothing like that. Documentation was proving difficult to come by this lifetime. Do you see yourself at the wedding? I asked. She answered quickly in a loud whisper. We are not at the wedding. We can only watch the people coming and going. The servants are not allowed. What are you feeling? Hatred. Why? Do they treat you poorly? Because we are poor, she answered softly. And we are bonded to them. And we have so little compared to what they have. Do you ever get to leave the estate, or do you live out your life there? She answered wistfully. I live out my life there. I could feel her sadness. Her life was both difficult and hopeless. I progressed her to the day of her death. I see a house. I am living and lying on the bed. They are giving me something to drink, something warm. It has a minty odor to it. My chest is very heavy. It's difficult to breathe. I have pain in my chest and my back. It is a bad pain, difficult to talk. She was breathing rapidly and swallowing in a great pain. After a few minutes of agony, her face softened and her body relaxed. Her breathing returned to the normal. I have left my body. Her voice was louder and husky. I see a wonderful light. There are people coming to me. They are coming to help me. Wonderful people. They are not afraid. I feel very light. There was a long pause. Do you have any thoughts about the lifetime you just left? That is not for later. For now, I just feel the peace. It is a time of comfort. The party must be comforted. The soul finds peace here. You leave all the bodily pains behind you. Your soul is peaceful and serene. It is a wonderful feeling. Wonderful, like the sun is always shining on you. The light is so brilliant. Everything comes from the light. Energy comes from its light. Our soul immediately goes there. It's almost like an magnetic force that we are attached to. It is wonderful. It is like a power source. I know how to heal. Does it have a color? It has many colors. She paused, resting in its light. What are you experiencing? I ventured. Nothing, just a peacefulness. You're among your friends. They are all there. I see my people, many people. Some are familiar, others are not. But we are there waiting. She continued to wait. As minutes slowly passed, I decided to push the pause. I have a question to ask. Of whom? Catherine asked. Somebody you are the master, I hedged. I think the understanding of this will help us. The question is this: do we choose the time and the manner of our birth and our death? Can we choose our situation? Can we choose the time or our passing over again? I think understanding that will ease a lot of your fears. Is there anyone there who can answer that question? The room felt cold. When Catherine spoke again, her voice was deeper and more resonant. It was a voice I had never heard before. It was the voice of an poet. Yes, we chose when we will come into our physical state and when we will leave. We know when we are having accomplished what we are sent down here to accomplish. We know when the time is up and you will accept your death. For you know you can't get nothing more out of this lifetime. When you have a time, when you have had the time to rest and re energize your soul, you are allowed to choose your re entry back into the physical state. Those people who hesitate, who are not sure of their return here, they might lose the chances that was given them, a chance to fulfill what they must when they are planning in a physical state. I knew immediately and completely that this was not a Catherine speaking. Who is speaking to me? I implored. Who is talking? Catherine answered in her familiar soft whisper. I don't know. The voice of someone somebody who controls things, but I don't know who it is. I can only hear this voice and try to tell you what he says. She also knew his knowledge was not coming from herself, not from the subconsciousness, not from the unconsciousness, not even her superconsciousness self. She was somehow listening to they convincing to me the words or the thoughts of someone very special, someone who controls the thing. Thus another master had appeared, different from the one or several from whom the previous wisdom laden messages had come. This was a new spirit with a characteristic voice and style, poetic and serene. This was a master who speak about the death without any hesitation, yet whose voice and the thoughts were steeped with the love. The love felt warm and real, yet detached and universal. It is felt blissful, yet not smoothing or emotional or bidding. It's relate a feeling of loving, detached or detached loving kindness, and it's felt distantly familiar. Catherine's whisper grew louder. I have no faith in these people. No faith in which people? I queried. In the masters. No faith. No, I have lack of faith. That is why my life has been so difficult. I have no faith in that lifetimes. She was calmly evacuating her 18th century life. I asked her what she has learned in that lifetime. I learned about anger and resentment, about harboring your feelings towards people. I also had to learn that I have no control over my life. I want control, but I don't have any. I must have a faith in the masters. They will guide me throughout, but I didn't have the faith. I felt like I was doomed from the beginning. I never looked at the things very pleasantly. We must have the faith. We must have faith. And I doubt. I choose to doubt instead of believe. She paused. What should you do? And I do to make ourselves better. Are you apart the same? I asked. The answer came from the master who last we have spoken of an intuitive powers and of returning from the coma. The voice, the style, the tone were all different from both Catherine's and from masculine, poetic master who had just spoken. Everybody's path is basically the same. We all must learn certain attitudes while we are in the physical state. Some of us are quicker to accept them than others. Charity, hope, faith, and love. We must all know these things and now know them well. It is not just one hope and one faith and one love. So many things feed into each one of these. There are so many ways to demonstrate them, and yet we have only tapped into a little bit of an each one. People of an religious order have come closer than any of us have because they have taken these oaths of chastity and obedience. They have given up so much without asking for anything in return. The rest of us continue to ask for rewards and justification for our behavior. When there are no rewards that we want, the reward isn't doing, but doing without expecting anything, doing unselfishly. I have not learned that, Catherine added in her soft whisper. For a moment, I was confused by the word chastity, but I remembered that the root means pure, referring to a much different state from that of just sexual abstinence. Not to the over indulgence, she continued. Anything done to excess in excess. You will understand, you really do understand. She paused again. I'm trying, I added. Then I decided to focus on Catherine. Perhaps the masters had not yet left. What can I do to best help Catherine to overcome her fears and anxieties and to learn her the lesson? This is the best way, or should I change something or follow up in a specific area? How can I help her the best? The answer came in the deep voice of the poet master. I leaned forward in my chair. You're doing what is correct. But this is for you, not for her. Not again, the message was this that this was for my benefit more than for the Catherines. For me, yes, what we say is for you. Not only was he is referring to Catherine in the third person, but he said we. There were indeed several masters spirits in attendance. Can I know your names? I asked immediately, winking at the mundane nature of my question. I need guidance. I have so much to know. The answer was a love poem, a poem about my life and my death. The voice was soft and tender, and I felt the loving detachment of an universal spirit. I listened in the awe. You will be guided in the time. You will be guided in the time. When you accomplish what you have been sent here to accomplish, then your life will be ended. But not before then. You have much time ahead of you. Much time. I was simultaneously anxious and relieved. I was glad he was not more specific. Catherine was becoming restless. She spoke in a small whisper. I am falling, trying to find my life. Falling, she cited, and I did too. The masters were gone. I pondered. The miraculous message, very personalized message from a very spiritual sources. The implications were overwhelming. The light after the death and the life after the death are choosing when we are born and when we will die. I even found myself overlooking my own flaws. For the same reasons, I didn't need to try to be perfect or in control all the time. There really was no need to impress anyone. I was very glad that I could share this experience with a Carolyn. We would often talk after the dinner and sort out many feelings and reactions to the Catherine's sessions. Carol, as an analyst, my aunt is very well grounded. She knew how driven I was to pursue the experiences with Catherine in a careful, scientific manner, and she could play the devil advocate to help me look at its information objectivity. As the critical evidence mounted that the Catherine was indeed revealing the great truth, Carol felt and shared my appreciation and my joy. When Catherine arrived for her next appointment 1 week later, I was ready to play the tape of the last week's incredible dialogue. After all, she was proving me with a celestial poetry in addition to the past life recall. I told her that she had a related information from after the death experiences, even though she had no memory at all of the in betweens or spiritual state. She was reluctant to listen, overwhelming, improved, and happier, so she had no need to listen to this material. Beside it was all somewhat eerie. I prevailed upon her to listen. It was wonderful, beautiful, uplifting, and it came through her. I wanted to share it with her. She listened to her soft whisper on the tape for only a few minutes, and then she made me turn it off. She said it was just too weird and made her uncomfortable. Silently, I remembered, this is for you, not for her. I wondered how long this session would continue because she was improving every week. Now only a few ripples remained in her one turbulent pond. She was still afraid of enclosed places, and the relationship with the steward was still literally touch and go. Otherwise, her progress was remarkable. We had not had a traditional psychotherapy session for a month. None was necessary. We would chat for a few minutes to catch up on the events of the week, then move quickly to do the hypothetic regressions. Whether due to the actual memories of major traumas or daily mini torments or to the process of revealing the experiences, Catherine was virtually cured. Her progress and the panic attacks that had just about disappeared. She had no fear of a death or dying. She was no longer afraid of losing control. Physiotherapists are now using high doses of tranquilizers and antidepressant medicines to react to people treated with Catherine symptoms. In addition to the medicines, the patients are also often in intensive psychotherapy or attending the phobia group therapy session. Many psychotherapists believe that symptoms such as Catherine having a biological basis, that there are defenders in one or several brain chemicals. As I hypothesized Catherine to a deep trance state, I thought about how remarkable and wonderful it was that in a period of a week, without the use of a medicine, traditional therapy, or group therapy, she was nearly cured. This was not just the suppression of her symptoms, nor the gritting of her teeth and living through it, a life racked by the fears. This was a cure, the absence of the symptoms, and she was radiant, serene, and happy beyond my wildest hopes. Her voice was soft whisper again. I'm in a building, something with an doomed ceiling. The ceiling is blue and gold. There are the other people with me. They are dressed in old, some type of a robe, very old and dirty. I don't know how we got there. There are many figures in the room. There are also pieces, some pieces standing on some stone structures. They are a large gold figures at one end of the room. He appears. He is very large with the wings. He is a very devil. It is very hot in the room, very hot. It is hot because there are no openings into the room. We have to stay away from the village. There is something wrong with us. Are you sick? Yes, we are all sick. I don't know what it is we have, but our skin dies. I become very black. I feel very cold. The air is very dry, very stale. We cannot return to the village. We must stay out. Some of the facts are deformed. This disease sounded terrible, like leprosy. If she had once had a glamorous lifetime, we had not yet stumbled across it. How long do you have to start there? Forever, she answered gloomily, until we die. There is no cure of this. Do you name do you know the name of the illness? What it is called? No. The skin gets very dry and shriveled up. I have been there for years. There are others who had just arrived. There is no way back. We have been cast out to die. She suffered a wretched existence living in a cave. We must hunt for our food. I see some type of unworld beast that we are hunting for, with horns. He is brown with the horns, big horns. Does anybody visit you? No, they cannot go near or they will suffer from the evil. 2. We have been cursed for some evil we have done, and this is our punishment. The sands of her theology were constantly shifting in the hourglasses of her lives. Only after the death in the spiritual state was there a welcome and a reassuring constancy. Do you know what year it is? We have lost the track of a time. We are sick. We just wait for our death. Is there no hope? I feel the infections despair. There is no hope. We will all die. And there is a much pain in my hand. My whole body is weak. I am old. It is difficult for me to move. What happens when you cannot move anyone? You are moved to another cave and you are left there to die. What do they do with the dead? They seal the entrance to the cave. Do they ever seal a cave before the person is dead? I was searching for a clue to your fear of enclosed places. I don't know. I have never been there. I am in the room with our people. It is very hot and against the wall, just lying there. What is the room for? It is for the worship. Mary gods, it is very hot. I advised her in time. I see something white. I see something white, some type of canopy. They are moving somebody. It is you. I don't know. I will welcome death. My body is so much pain. Catherine lifts her drain thin in pain, and she was fainting because of the heat in the cave. I took her to the day of her death. She was still panting. Is it hard to breathe? I asked. Yes, so hot is here. Feels so hot, very hot. Dark. I can't see and I can't move. She was dying, paralyzed and alone in the hot, dark cave. The mouth of a cave was already sealed shut. She was frightened and miserable. Her breathing grew more rapid and irregular, and she mercifully died, ending this anxious life. I feel very light, like I am floating. It is very bright here. It is wonderful. Are you in pain? No, she paused. And I am waiting, the masters. Instead, she was whisking away. I am falling very fast and going back to a body. She seems as surprised as I was. I see buildings, buildings with round columns. There are many buildings. We are outside. There are trees, olive trees around. It is very beautiful. We are watching something people have on very funny masks. These cover their faces. It is some festivities. They have dressed in long robes and they have masks that covers their faces. They pretend to be what they are not. They are on the platform above where we sit. Are you watching a play? Yes. What do you look like? Look at yourself. I have a brown hair. My hair is in a braid. She paused. Her description of herself and the presence of olive trees reminded me of Catherine's Greek-like lifetime 1500 years before the Christ. When I was her teacher, Diogen, I decided to investigate. Do you know the date? No. Are there people with you that you know? Yes, my husband is sitting next to me. I don't know him in her present lifetime. Do you have children? I am with my child now. Her voice of words was interesting, somehow ancient and not at all like a Catherine's conscious style. Is your father there? I don't see him. You are there somewhere, but not with me. So I was right. We were back 35th century. What do I do there? You are just watching, but you teach. You teach? We have learned from you. Squares and the circles, funny things. Diogen, you are there. What else do you know of me? You are old. Somehow we are related. You're my mother's brother. Do you know other of my family? I know your wife and your children. You have sons. Two of them are older than I. My mother has died. She died very young. Has your father raised you? Yes, but I am married now. You are expecting a baby. Yes, I'm afraid. I do not want to die while the baby is born. Did that happen to your mother? Yes. And you are afraid it will happen to you also. It happens many times. Is this your first child? Yes, I am frightened. I accept it soon. I am very big. It is uncomfortable for me to move. It is cold. She had moved herself ahead in a time. The baby was about to born. Catherine had never had a baby and had not delivered any in the 14 years since my obstetrics rotation in the medical school. Are you? I inquired. I am lying on a something stone. It is very cold. I am having pain. Somebody must help me. Somebody must help me. I told her to breathe deeply. The baby would be born without pain. She was panting and groaning. At the same time, her labor lasted several more adjoining minutes, and then her child was born. She had a daughter. Do you feel better now? Very weak, so much blood. Do you know what you will name her? No, I'm not too tired. I want my baby. Your baby is here. I ad-libbed a little girl. Yes, my husband is pleased. She was exhorted. I am instructed her to take a short nap and to awaken fresher. After a minute or two, I waken her from the nap. Do you feel better now? Yes, I see animals. They are carrying something on their backs. They have a basket on them. There are many things in the basket. Food, some breadfruits. It is pretty land. Yes, with much food. Do you know the name of a land? What do we call it when a stranger asks the name of a village? Katina, Katina. It sounds like a Greek town. I promoted. I don't know that. Do you know that? You have been from the village and returned. I have not. This was her twist. Since in that lifetime I was her uncle, older and wiser, she was asking me if I knew the answer to my own question. Unfortunately, I did not have access to that information. Have you lived all your life in the village? I asked. Yes, she whispered. But you travel so you can know what you teach. You can travel to learn. To learn the land, different trade routes, so you can put them down and make the maps. You are old. You go with the younger people because you understand the charts. You are very wise. Which chart do you mean? Charts of the star. You understand the symbols? You can help them to make maps. Do you recognize the other people from the village? I don't know them, but I know you. Alright, how is our relationship? Very good. You are very kind. I like to just sit next to you. It is very comforting. You have helped us. You have helped my sisters. There comes a time enough when I must leave you, for I am old. No, she was not ready to deal with my death. Thank you.